Welcome to another episode of Not That Hard to Homeschool, the podcast for real people so that you can confidently, competently, and yes, even contentedly provide the high school education that is best for your teens and your family. I'm your host, Lisa Nehring from NotThatHardToHomeschool.com. Well, hey everybody, this is Lisa from It's Not That Hard to Homeschool, and I wanted to talk to you about something I get a question about all the time, and that is, how do I teach my kids executive functioning skills? So I want to share with you a couple of simple tools and tricks that we used as we were raising our 5 kids over 30 years of homeschooling that really were effective and worked. The first one is pretty simple. We had a weekly family planning meeting. Now, how does that tie into executive functioning skills? I hope to show you. So every week we would all gather. And again, if you don't know my story, I have 5 kids, 16 years apart in age. So we had 3 to 5 years between each kiddo, right? So by the time I had a kid in high school, I had a toddler. So at some points I had a baby, a preschooler, an elementary student, a junior high student, and a high schooler. And then they just kept growing, right? So we had a lot of kids in a house at once. We had a busy household. Our kids were working and doing different activities and sports and jobs and all the things that everybody else is doing, right? So the one thing that we did to keep organized, especially as we added drivers, was to do a weekly family planning meeting. The added benefit is this teaches your kids executive functioning skills, and here's how. Everybody joins the meeting. We usually did it on a weekend. Usually on Sunday afternoon, we'd all gather. Everybody was expected to bring their planner. And yes, even our little kids had planners. Of course, they were very simple. They honestly probably had a notebook at certain points to draw in while we had our family planning meeting. And then we would go over all the activities of the week, including my husband's rather odd schedule. So because he travels for work and he would go to different locations, he would tell us where he was going, when he was coming home, because the leave times and the arrive home times were different for that. We would also coordinate who was going to do the driving for certain activities, who was going to drop off, who was going to pick up, because all those things, when you have a big family, you want to make sure nobody gets left behind, right? No child left behind in the homeschool takes on a whole different meaning. Okay, so we would just plan out the pragmatics of the week. Who was going to what activities, who was staying home, all those kind of things. If we needed to manage dog care or other animal care, that kind of thing. The great thing about this was it did teach our kids executive functioning skills, because executive functioning skills is all about self-management, self-regulation, planning ahead, how to prepare oneself. And I've given this example for years, but I think it's such a good one. So I'm going to give it to you again if you haven't heard me talk at any of the conferences or on our other Facebook Lives. And that is this. When my son was in high school, we sat down and did a family planning meeting, and he said, okay, so I have karate, that's 1 hour. Well, here's the deal. Here's how kids think. They think that activity takes 1 hour. It costs 1 hour of time, right? So they write down 6 to 7 or 4 to 5, whatever time it is, but they don't plan the prep time, right? So if you're going to go do a sports activity that you have to go to a location, you have to take into account how long does it take for you to drive there? What kind of materials do you need to get ready? Like, you have to get your gear. You probably need a snack if you're going to go do a high output activity like karate. And you need to you need to clean up, prep for the activity, get in the car, go to the activity, get dropped off, get ready at the place of the activity possibly. And then when you're done with the activity, you actually have to come home. You might have to take a shower. You might need to get a snack again. And then you might have an evening activity on top of that. So this 1 hour activity that he would plan for 1 hour, because that's how long the activity took, in reality, it was about a 2.5 hour project, because he had to get his gear, he had to get a snack, he had to get his water bottle, he had to make sure that his outfit was out of the washer and dryer, he had to get appropriate shoes, and then he had to arrange a ride to get there. Then when he got back, he had to take a shower, he had to put his gear away, he had to wash his uniform, and he needed a snack. So it really, again, took about 2.5 hours. And that is how we teach our kids executive functioning skills. Now, I mentioned something that we had a meeting just with him, because not only did we do a family planning meeting where everybody became attuned to the rhythms and routines of the family, which is so important when you're teaching executive functioning skills. What are the patterns that the kids can rely on? What should they look for? If you have an activity that's outside of the house, you might need to get a water bottle. You might need to get different shoes. If you're traveling in really hot climates like Arizona, it's been 115 already in the spring, you might need to have water in your car. Okay. If you live in the far north like we do and you're traveling in the winter, you might need to make sure that you have blankets and pillows in the car in case the car breaks down. So, all of these things you need to help your kids take into account. And those family planning meetings really help them see the whole picture. And that is part of executive functioning skills, is looking at the whole picture, looking down past right now, the long view of time, and planning accordingly. Not only did we do a family planning meeting, but we did weekly student meetings with our kids once they hit junior high. And part of that was we were in some academic co-ops. They started taking online classes, and those kind of classes took planning ahead. So most kids don't think, like, especially when they're in junior high, okay, I have an activity due on Friday, so I need to figure out, I need to back into that activity. It's going to take me an hour and a half, and I have 1 week to do it, but I have a really busy week because I've got soccer tournaments and maybe we're traveling to grandma's for the weekend and my dog is got this foot surgery or whatever. Like all of a sudden, where does the hour and a half come from? So when you have that student family meeting or the student meeting, and what I did was with my kids is we just planned it on a Monday morning. I would sit down with my junior high and hires and senior high kids, and they would have their planner and I would have mine, and we would just go over what stuff was due when and how were they going to back into it. So if it's due on Friday and it's an hour and a half project, but they know they can't start it until Monday, they have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 days for a 90-minute project. How many minutes a day should they do it? And then if they have to practice presenting the project on top of finishing it, what extra time does that take? So do you see what I mean? Like if you do a student planning meeting with your kids, you can really talk about the nuts and bolts of their schedule and how to really plan into that. And again, executive functioning skills are taking the long view. What are the ramifications going to be? How much time do things take? How do you self-regulate and self-modulate? So these two simple meetings a week really can help your kids develop their executive functioning skills. And I would say, I love Andrew Pudawa. He said this years and years ago. If your kids are still asking for help, they probably need it, because most kids will get to a developmental stage and point in their life where they're just like, I can do it myself. And we want them to become independent, right? That is the point for them to have independence and the personal agency, right? So in order to do that, we need to teach them, what does it take? Now, I also want to say some kids are just naturally born with a high level of organization, and praise God for those kids, right? Those are fun kids to work with and they just kind of get things. But other kids might need more of your input about how to plan ahead and how to make the best use of their time. The other thing I just want to encourage you, as you do these family planning meetings and student planning meetings, help your kids plan in time for fun and time for just breaks, brain breaks, physical breaks, and help them become well-rounded people. Because really homeschooling isn't just all about academics. It's about really growing the person of your child. So spiritual, mental, physical, social development, how all of those come together so that they can be a person with agency, self-agency. In other words, getting things done on their own so that they have resiliency and more. I hope this has been super helpful. I know, and I just want to say, you know what, like you might be surprised how many fun conversations and how much really rich family time you have together just doing the family planning meeting and the student planning meeting, because it's dedicated time to sit down with the people you care about most and love the most to really craft a life that makes sense for your family and makes sense for your student. So yeah, don't overlook the simple power of a planner. Now, I'm a paper planner girl. I know so many of you guys like electronic stuff and Google Calendar and all those things. Don't overlook those. They can be super helpful, especially if you're trying to sync a lot of schedules and people are coming and going a lot. I know so many homeschool families. It's not like how it used to be where one parent stayed home with the kids full time. People are so much coming and going anymore. So if you're a person who likes those electronic tools, more power to you. I know some families have been using Trello with really great results and other project management tools like that, as well as online calendars. So find the tool that works best for you. As always, the tool that works best for you is the tool that you use. So I just know this about myself. I like paper planners. I'm not going to forget which paper planner I have. I have it in my purse. I have it with me all the time. I take my nightly notes on it. And that's another thing that you could help your kids learn to do with their planner is just at the end of the day, take 15 minutes and just do a brain dump. What all the things they need to remember for the next day, notes that they have thought about during the day, all those kind of things. And that might help them just to get ready for the day ahead. But we'll talk about morning and evening habits later. Hope this has been super helpful to you and have a great day, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Bye. This is Lisa from True North Homeschool Academy.